Hey everybody, hope you're doing all right. Welcome to another edition of the Garage Learning from Home. I'm Steve Geralt, and today I want to introduce to you my producer, Halie Graham. She's going to break down for you how to make money in this industry, from estimating through producing to all the things you need to consider when you're trying to price yourself as an artist. I hope you listen super closely, pay attention, because this is really important stuff if you want to make this your living. So enjoy. I'm going to go spend some money. Halie, take it from here.
Hey everyone, my name is Halie and I'm the producer for The Garage. I run all the production for the company and also run the business side, and thought I'd sit down and talk to you guys about estimating. We had been getting a lot of questions on like what an estimate is, how do you put one together and things like that. So I thought I'd sit down in week 3 of quarantine and talk to you guys. We're keeping it real profesh. My tripod is a stack of pillows and my dog is probably gonna start barking any second. So this is just where we're at. So let's say clients reach out to you and they're asking for a bid. The first thing that you want to understand about the job is, when is it going to shoot? What are your deliverables? What are your ratios that you need to shoot in? Are you shooting 16 by 9, 9 by 16? Are you delivering a 15-second? Is it a 30-second? Things like that. So let's say for this estimate that we're basing it off of this imaginary scenario where liquids are flying everywhere on a black background, and then for the first 10 seconds and then the last 5 seconds is a grounding moment where the beverage is sitting on a table of props with a hand model. So the estimate that I have for you guys, if you want to download it, I'm going to walk you through and talk about all the different things that need to go in an estimate. So first things first, we have our job description. This is where you get to lay out all of the things that you're going to put in your estimate. This is a good time to include things like how long the shoot is, what you're including, what you're not including, what the client needs to provide, and things like that. This can be necessary when, a week into the job, your client comes back and says, no, it's supposed to be a 2-day shoot. And you're like, well, my estimate does only say 1 day, so we should talk about that. So I have here a 1-day motion control estimate, and then you put whatever company you're working for. I put in client to provide all product and color corrects. So let's say you're working for a beverage company and you need 2,000 cans of whatever liquid that they're sending you. This can be a really expensive line item that's coming out of your budget, so you should put that in there. And then color corrects are actually a really expensive line item that you should definitely say that client should provide. A color correct is basically a perfect product of whatever you're shooting. It's called a color correct because it specifically follows brand guidelines to be a certain color, so that in post-production they don't have to spend more money fixing that. But they get pretty pricey pretty quickly, so I always have my client provide those for us. I put in there as well that no post-production is included in our estimate, just so they don't expect that. And then I say minimal propping included, and that it should be approved ahead of time. So in our little imaginary scenario at the end, there's propping and a table and things like that. So we want our client to approve all of those props beforehand, so that my prop stylist doesn't have to bring 15 bowls to set, which normally happens anyway, but still. Then lastly, I put crew based on a 10-hour day. There's jobs that are 8-hour days and there's jobs that are 12-hour days. And this lets the client know past a certain point when you're gonna start accruing overtime. And then there's usage, and this is a really important section that gives you a lot of debating power as a photographer. Less so as a director, because when you're shooting video, typically the client then owns the video outright. But for photographers, your usage could be based on a year or 2 years, and it also dictates where the media is going to be placed. If it's a TV commercial, if it's for Instagram, for billboards, things like that, it gives you some leveraging power on your fee as well. So let's talk about your fee. This can be a little bit arbitrary, and when you're first starting out, you're gonna mess up on this. It just is what happens. You're gonna oversell yourself and you're gonna undersell yourself. It's just part of the learning game. I would say if this is your first job or first couple of jobs, I would keep it at like a $500 day rate. If you're in the first 6 months to a year and you're still building your portfolio, but you're confident with your abilities, a good rule of thumb would be, $1,500 to $2,000, and then you just keep building from there. So for each line item in your estimate, you're talking the client through what the costs are that you're incurring to do the job for them. So for each of these costs, you can actually reach out to these crew members and figure out what they charge for doing their job for that day. So A lot of these people need prep days. So as a producer, I would have a prep day and a wrap day. So my prep day is getting everything ready for the shoot, and my wrap day is making sure everyone gets paid and things like that. For this estimate, I put in just arbitrary rates. So your assistants are $500 and your stylist, and they're $1,000. And this is not indicative of any actual prices. It's just so you guys can see line items and see what I put into an estimate. So for each of these crew members, if you are just starting out and you don't know how much to charge for them, you can always reach out to these people. It's pretty standard practice in this industry to ask someone what their rate is. So you shouldn't have to worry about estimating this side of things, because you can just reach out to each person, figure out what they charge, and put those numbers directly in there. So producer, you should have a grip and a gaffer, or a first and a second assistant. You may only need one, you may need four, just depends on your job. And then you have a digital imaging technician. This person is going to be handling all of your files and will be taking care of the back end of your shoot. So for photo, it's a digital tech. For video, it's a digital imaging technician or a DIT. And then you start getting into the more specific things for your job. So in our imaginary job, we have liquids going everywhere. So I have a food or beverage stylist. So I would have taken the creative and sent it to my food stylist. I would have asked them what their day rate would be for the job. I'd ask them how many prep days, and do you need an assistant? This is also standard practice. You should always ask what they're gonna charge. You shouldn't assume, because it definitely depends on each job. And your beverage and food stylist, as well as your prop stylist and your rigger, will also need prep days. They need time to prep whatever they're doing. So they'll need time to buy the groceries, buy the props, build the rigs, things like that. So you should make sure to give them days in advance to do this. They'll be able to tell you how many days they need, so you should just ask. And then your prop stylist would need a wrap day, because they have to return all of the props they bought for your job. And now we're getting into overtime. So let's say you know your job's gonna go a little bit long, but you don't wanna necessarily do a second day. So you have OT. OT is calculated based on your hourly rate for your day. So let's say for a $1,000 day rate, your hourly rate's $100. But overtime is time and a half. So your hourly rate would be $150 for overtime. And then there's a line item called P&W. Because I have to put all of my crew on payroll, that means I'm also I'm paying taxes for them. So I'm charging my client for those taxes that we're paying. So as you keep scrolling, insurance, that's something that probably gets looked over often, but should be something that you're definitely prepared to handle. You should have workers' comp, and your shoot should be insured, but that's a whole other conversation, but it is very necessary. So catering as well, you have to feed all of your crew breakfast and lunch. This has to happen. Feeding your crew is not something you can really skip. It doesn't matter how low budget your job is, you have to feed your crew. Nothing will make a worse shoot day than a crew that haven't been fed. I know this from experience. So then your next couple line items, you have a drive and upload. So you're charging for the hard drive to give your clients all the footage, and then you're charging for transcoding. So once you wrap your day, your DIT will probably have to stay a few extra hours to finish out all the transcoding. And this is the line item that I put in there to cover basically any OT that the DIT incurs. So now we're into the prop section. So when we reached out to our rigger, our food stylist, and our prop stylist to ask them how much money they would need to do their job, and they told us this is where a line item goes. I just put $2,000 in for each, so you guys could see that those line items are necessary. So we might need $2,000 worth of props, $2,000 worth of food, and $2,000 worth of rigging supplies. And now we're into rentals. So anything that you own that you've purchased that you're using on the day of the shoot, you should still charge for. So even if you bought your camera 3 years ago, but you need it for that shoot, you should charge for it. If you have no idea what to charge for it, you can normally go to sites like Autorama that has rentals, and you can look at their day rates for your equipment and have a good idea of what to charge, and that's pretty much industry standard. So you should charge for your camera and lenses. You should charge for the computer that you're using to handle all of the video files. You should charge for your lighting and grip, and you should charge for the studio that you're shooting in. And then I typically put in a line item as well for backgrounds and backdrops. So any seamless or whatever you need to purchase for that, there's a line item for it. And then your hand model. So your hand model, normally you need to have a manicure for as well. So those are line items you should put in your estimate. So now that you're putting together your estimate, all of these costs are basically hard costs that you need to do your job. So the only thing that can be a little bit arbitrary is your fee, but everything else you should be able to reach out to people and ask about. Reach out to your assistants, reach out to your beverage stylist, look into how much you should be charging for your rentals. So anything you need to be successful on the day of your shoot, you should be having in your estimate. You should be charging your clients. So let's say you've sent this estimate to your client. I always put a little note in about like, hey, let me know how this sounds. I would love to chat with you over the phone. Happy to talk numbers if this doesn't work for you. Just something that lends itself to be open to negotiation, but you don't want to straight up say, yes, I'm willing to come down if you need it, because you're shooting yourself in the foot. So let's say your client comes back and they're like, perfect, done. And you're like, okay, great. But there's also the chance that they come back and say, hey, this is way over our price limit and we can't make this work. Can you come down at all? So at that point, I will get on the phone with them. I'm like, let's talk. What about this is too much? Where are you guys trying to be budget-wise? What needs to happen here to make this work? So then at this point, I'll try and see what numbers I can come down on. I'll probably reach back out to my stylist. I will see if they can come down any. I'll lower our fees. I'll try and lower any costs that I can. But if they're hard costs going out, like if I'm paying $1,000 to rent a camera for the day, that number shouldn't be coming down, because that is absolute. But otherwise, we'll try and come down where we can. So let's say I was able to take $5,000 off the estimate and the client needs us to take $10,000 off the original estimate. I'll get on the phone with them and just say, hey, I was only able to come down $5,000. Is that something you guys can do? And sometimes they'll be lenient and they know it's give and take and they'll accept that. But other times they say, nope, we need that extra $5,000. So then at that point, you go back in your estimate and you're seeing, hey, there's really nothing else I can take off of this. And that at that point is either your producer's job or if you don't have a producer, your director or photographer's job to say, nope, this is what this job needs to be successful. You have to be willing to stand up for the cost at some point, because you just have to do it the correct way. And there's always going to be people that are offering to do it cheaper than you are, but oftentimes if that's the case, the work looks cheaper. So integrity is very big in this business, not underbidding people just for the sake of underbidding them. If that means that you stood up for your cost here and say, hey, this is really what we need to do this job the right way, and they walk away, then sometimes you just have to let that job go, because you would rather do it the right way and make the work look really good than sacrifice the quality. So that was a brief rundown of how to put an estimate together and a little bit of the psychology about how to talk to a client. I hope you guys are staying home and staying safe and out of all the craziness that is happening in the world. But this is Lola Pants and I signing off, and please let me know if I can help you guys with anything else. Have a good one.